two victories that God gives to Israel. And we see here, even in the midst of these victories, Saul trying to control. And we see Saul's impatience here in this passage. We see Saul's um, pride in these passages. Even still, God gives them victory. And Saul is told here in this particular passage that we'll be looking at today that his family would be rejected from the kingship, that he would not have a legacy. It would not go to Jonathan for the next king, but that God had chosen another because of Saul's impatience, not just with Samuel, but with God. And he would take that impatience out on the people and on his soldiers, even as we see in this passage. And so we see very quickly that the pride, the weight of the rule over Israel here became a burden for Saul. And it's very quickly that he's acting it out against the people of Israel. And so these are two very important campaigns against the Philistines that are made mention of, and to the Amalekites to the south even. And that battle it goes further even in chapter 15 that we'll get to, Lord willing, next time. And we see there the rejection of Saul again, even in chapter 15, that God declared that he would not be king any longer from that point. And so we see here Saul, a quick change in Saul as he leads the people of Israel in the context of the book of 1 Samuel here. We begin reading there in chapter 13, beginning in verse 1. It tells us Saul reigned 1 year. And when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose him 3,000 men of Israel, whereof 2,000 were with Saul rather in Michmash and in Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. And the rest of the people he sent every man to his tent. So he broke his army up into two forces with him particularly. He had 2,000 with himself, 1,000 soldiers with Jonathan. And it tells us there in verse 3, Jonathan smote the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, Let the Hebrews hear. And all Israel heard say that Saul had smitten the garrison of the Philistines, and that Israel also was had in abomination with the Philistines, or the Philistines hated them, in other words, because they had that victory there. And the people were called together after Saul to Gilgal. And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Michmash, eastward in Bethaven. When the men of Israel saw that, they were in a strait, for the people were distressed. Then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and high places and in pits. And some of the Hebrews went over Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. And as for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. And so Jonathan defeats a garrison of the Philistines, Jonathan and his men. And because of this, Saul's bragging about it. He's declaring it throughout the land. He's trying to encourage the children of Israel because the Philistines were weighing hard against them. We even see that here in this passage made mention of there in the latter part here of chapter 13. They weren't allowed to have weapons even in the land. They didn't have blacksmiths, were not allowed in the land of Israel at this time because the Philistines didn't want them making weapons. And so if you wanted your axe sharpened or your hoe sharpened, you had to go to a Philistine blacksmith and have him sharpen it for you, so that you would have a sharp axe or a sharp hoe or whatever you were using. They weren't even allowed to have people sharpening anything in the land of Israel. The Philistines were trying so hard to keep this rule over Israel at this point. And so God gives them a victory here over this garrison of the Philistines. And Saul's out proclaiming it. He's broadcasting it, that the Lord's given us victory here, trying to encourage the people. And the Philistines get mad. I mean, they're angry about this, and they bring the full force of their army here against the children of Israel. And it really scares them, scares the Jews. It scares them when this army comes against them. These 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. A vast army here. They brought everybody to fight against Israel here at this time. And the people were scared, and they're hiding in caves and in thickets and rocks and high places and in pits, it tells us. And some even left the country, and they went across Jordan into the land of Gad, and said, well, we just won't stick around in the land any longer. So they went east. Philistines were coming from the west, and so they went east and got out of town while the Philistines were coming against them there. And they followed Saul trembling. Those that were still there with him, those that had come to fight, they were following Saul trembling. Saul had courage here. We see that. Saul was ready to go to battle. Saul was trusting the Lord to give them victory over these Philistines. And we see that those are good things about Saul. Saul was encouraged in the Lord, and he thought that they would have the victory, and he was expecting to go to battle, expecting God to give this victory. But he wearied over formalities. That was Saul's problem. He wearied over formalities. I'll just do it myself. I'll take care of this my way. I'll do it the way I think is best. And he ignored the protocol that was given to them in the law. He ignored the straight commandments of God and would decide how he wanted to follow it himself. This would be Saul's problem. And so he tarried. The Bible tells us there in verse 8, he tarried 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. Back in chapter 10 and verse number 8, we see an example here given after Saul was anointed there. Says, thou shalt go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto thee to offer burnt offerings and to sacrifices of peace offerings 7 days. Shalt thou tarry till I come to thee and show thee what thou shalt do. Well, this was at his time that he would be anointed, and so this was kind of like a regular thing that Samuel will do. You go down and get everything ready. I'll be down there in 7 days. Well, here they're getting ready to go to battle again in chapter 13, and so they waited 7 days on Samuel to get there, and Samuel didn't show up just on time. And so they had the sacrifices ready. They were ready for Samuel to come do the sacrifices and give them God's blessing, and they were going to go to battle. They were going to go fight. Samuel didn't show up in time. He tarried those 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Saul said, bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. It came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came. And Saul went out to meet him that he might salute him. And Samuel said, what hast thou done? And Saul said, because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. So we see here the impatience of Saul. Samuel didn't show up when Saul wanted him to show up. Samuel was on his way, but he just wasn't there when Saul was ready for him. And so Saul says, well, I'll just offer this offering myself. I'll seek the Lord's blessing myself. The Lord will bless me, and I'll do this. And so Saul stepped out of his position as king and took upon himself position as priest. And he had no authority to do that. He had no right to do that. This was against the law of God in what Saul was doing here. And Saul's explanation to Samuel, and we'll see this again, Saul's reasoning it's always kind of a funny way that he reasons in his own mind that he presents anyway. I forced myself. I didn't want to do it, Samuel. I know I'm not supposed to do it, but I forced myself to, because we have to have God's blessing before we go to battle. So I forced myself and offered the burnt offering. And he didn't force himself to do anything. He got tired of waiting on Samuel. He got scared that the people were leaving from him. And so he had to jump. He had to jump to get something done. He had to jump to get something accomplished in order to hold everything together instead of waiting on the Lord. We do this so often. We jump. We jump. We see what needs to be done or what we think needs to be done. We see what we think ought to be accomplished in this scenario, or what we're waiting on, or whatever, and we jump. We jump ahead of the Lord. We jump out of our responsibilities. We jump out of what we're supposed to be doing and try to handle the Lord's business ourselves and try to do things the way we think they ought to be done instead of waiting on the Lord and say, Lord, what is it that you'd have us to do? Here Saul rather jumps and does so himself, and then tries to give the excuse, I forced myself. He knew exactly what he was doing. Understand that he knew exactly that what he was doing was breaking the law of God. He understood that completely. Yet he tried to spin it such that he was doing a good thing. Yeah, I shouldn't have been doing that, but I was just wanting the Lord's blessing. I just wanted the Lord to bless us. I wanted the Lord to give us this victory. I wanted to encourage the hearts of the people. And Saul is told here by Samuel in verse 13 and 14. It says, and Samuel said to Saul, thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. And so he tells him, Saul, you're going to be the last of your family line that's going to be king over Israel. God's chosen somebody else. He's chosen one that's a man after his own heart. Because, very simply, he had not kept what God had commanded him. Very simply, he broke the law of God and did so willingly and rebelliously to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish in this moment. And Samuel arose, verse 15, and gat him up from Gilgal unto Gibeah of Benjamin, and Saul numbered the people that were present with him, about 600 men. He started out with 3,000, 2,000 with him, 1,000 with Jonathan, and now he's got 600. And Saul and Jonathan his son and the people that were present with them abode in Gibeah of Benjamin, but the Philistines encamped in Michmash. And the spoilers came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned into the way that leadeth to Ophrah, unto the land of Shual. Another company turned the way to Beth Horon, and another company turned to the way of the border that looketh to the valley of Zeboim toward the wilderness. Now there was no smith found throughout all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords or spears. But all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen every man his share and his coulter and his axe and his mattock. Yet they had a file for the mattocks and for the coulters and for the forks and for the axes to sharpen the goads. It came to pass in the day of battle that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul and Jonathan, but with Saul and with Jonathan his son was there found. So the only 2 swords in the whole of the army was with Jonathan and Saul. Everybody else had their hoes and their pitchforks and their ox goads sharpened up. They went to battle with pointy sticks and tools. Now these Philistines split up. Those that were camping in Michmash, they split up into these marauding companies, and there were 3 companies that would go into the land, and they would go rob, and they would go steal, and they would go get food, and they would take people hostage, and they were just terrorizing the people of Israel at this time. And these 3 companies were going out, and so the people here are paying for Saul's rebellion here. And these marauding companies of Philistines go in and are causing all of this problem now for Saul and the people of Israel. And again, the only 2 swords left in the army, one was Saul's and one was Jonathan's. And the garrison of the Philistines went out to the passage of Michmash, verse 23. Now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan the son of Saul said unto the young man that bare his armor, Come, and let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he told not his father. So you got the garrison of the Philistines over there at Michmash, and you've got the armies of Saul and the few that he's got there with him that are encamped on the other side there, Gilgal, and they're separated there, and Jonathan, just emboldened by the Spirit of the Lord here, Jonathan tells his armor bearer, hey, let's me and you go over and go to the garrison of the Philistines. And so his idea was, as he tells and he didn't tell anybody, didn't tell Saul, just his armor bearer, and says that Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree, which is in Migron, and the people that were with him were about 600 men. So that's all that were there with Saul. And Ahiah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh, wearing an ephod, and the people knew not that Jonathan was gone. And between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over unto the Philistines' garrisons, there was a sharp rock on the one side and a sharp rock on the other side, and the name of the one was Bose, and the name of the other Sinah. And I did not write down those meanings. I'll have to look those meanings up there for you, because those are, can't believe I didn't write, those are significant, the names, the meanings of those names there. And so you've got these two sharp rocks on either side of the Philistines' garrison there. And the forefront of the one was situate northward over against Michmash, and the other southward over against Gibeah. And Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, Come and let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. And so we see here the faithfulness and the faith of Jonathan. I love Jonathan here, Saul's son. He displayed so much that his father did not display. He had a heart for the Lord. He had a desire to honor God with his life, and he trusted God implicitly. There was no problem with God delivering the enemy into his hand. He said God can save by few or he can save by many. If it's just me and you going up, God can deliver this garrison into our hands. He had that kind of faith. We often, when we consider this time and we're looking at the heroes of this time period, we think automatically of David against Goliath, and we see the victory that God gives them there against the Philistines on that day. But we see the same kind of faith in Jonathan that was in David at that time as well. And it's the reason that they were such friends together. It's the reason they had such a love one for another. They had the same heart to honor the Lord and to be faithful to him, trusting him that he was going to take care, give victory to the people of Israel, that his name was going to be honored. And we see this with Jonathan here. We see it many other times with Jonathan in the rest of his story here. But we see it here particularly as he tells his armor bearer, look, God can do it. If the Lord be with us, if he'll work for us, he can deliver them into our hands just as easy as he can for an army of many coming against this garrison. And so verse 7, it says, his armor bearer said unto him, do all that is in thine heart. Now, there's a faithful armor bearer. I mean, you would think you're coming against a garrison of soldiers here, many soldiers that you're coming against. The armor bearer who is not armed with much himself, because his responsibility is to carry the armor for the prince. And Jonathan says, we'll go, if the Lord be with us, we'll go fight him. And his armor bearer, he's the only other guy with him. He said, you do whatever you want to do, and I'll go with you. If you're ready to go to battle, I'll go to battle with you. I am with thee, he says, according to thy heart. Whatever you're going to do, I'll be right there. Then said Jonathan, behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them. He said, we're going to let them know we're there. Hey, boys, look down here. We've come to fight. And he says, if they say thus unto us, tarry until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place and will not go up unto them. But if they say thus, come up unto us, then we will go up. For the Lord hath delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign unto us. The interesting thing here is he does not see that the Lord's going to give them victory if they come down to him. But he's willing to wait there. He's willing to do. But he says, they tell us to come up. That's a sign the Lord's given us the victory. Lord's given us a victory over them, and we can go up faithfully. We can go up there and not worry about a thing. We'll go up there and fight them. And so both of them discovered themselves into the garrison of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, Behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they had hid themselves. Oh, looky there. There's a couple of Hebrews come up out of the caves, out of the holes where they was hiding out in the desert there. And that first slaughter, I jumped ahead here. Verse 12, rather. I jumped down to verse 13. And the men of the garrison answered Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, Come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said unto his armor bearer, Come up after me, for the Lord hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. So Jonathan was excited. The Lord gave him a sign, and he believed it. The Lord had shown him that he had given them victory, and he believed God, and he and his armor bearer went up to fight this garrison of the Philistines. At that first verse, I keep jumping ahead to verse 14. Verse 13, and Jonathan climbed up upon his hands and upon his feet, and his armor bearer after him. They had to climb the hill first before they got to even get to the fight, right? And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew after him. And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew after him. So they were just hacking their way through the crowd when they got to the top of the hill. The Philistines are dying, and Jonathan's hacking them down, and the armor bearers striking them as they go by. So they're getting just slicing through them. This created quite a stir, this particular fight going on. And we'll see that here in just a moment. But Saul sees that there's a commotion going on over in the garrison of the Philistines, and there shouldn't be anybody over there fighting them. Who's over there fighting? Two men. And they're over there Jackie Channing them. I mean, they're just swinging. They're killing everybody in their path. And so it says there, verse 14, and that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men, within, as it were, an half acre of land which a yoke of oxen might plow. So they killed 20 of those Philistines, 22 of them, in that half acre of land. And there was trembling in the host in the field, and among all the people, the garrison and the spoilers, they also trembled, and the earth quaked, so it was a very great trembling. And the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away, and they went on beating down one another. And so that this multitude of soldiers start running away from Jonathan and his armor bearer, and they're hacking each other up as they go here. Then said Saul unto the people that were with him, Number now, and see who's gone from us. And when they had numbered, behold, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. And Saul said unto Ahiah, Bring hither the ark of God, for the ark of God was at that time with the children of Israel. So Saul saw an opportunity to go fight, and he does exactly what Hophni and Phinehas did, and why God punished them earlier against the Philistines. Saul says, Get me the ark of God over here. We're going to go after it. He was going to use it just like Hophni and Phinehas had the mind of doing, and using the ark of the Lord as a good luck charm. Try to force God to honor what's going on here. And so he asked for the ark. It came to pass, verse 19, while Saul talked unto the priest, that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased. And Saul said unto the priest, Withdraw thine hand. And Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to the battle, and behold, every man's sword was against his fellow, and there was a very great discomfiture. It's funny how God does this on many occasions with the enemies of the Lord that they end up hacking each other up, running away from the battle. Happened in the book of Judges. It happens here with the children of Israel against the Philistines here. They end up killing themselves, getting away from the Israelites in their run to get away from them. And there was a great discomfiture or a great victory for Israel and a beating down of the Philistines there. Verse 21 says, Moreover, the Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also turned to be with the Israelites. There was Saul and Jonathan. Likewise, all the men of Israel which had hid themselves in Mount Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in the battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over unto Bethaven. We're not told here why the reason was Saul stopped the priest after ordering the ark of the Lord be brought up. Maybe the Lord reminded him there what happened with Hophni and Phinehas, but he had the priest to stay his hand there and did not take the ark of the Lord with him and went out to battle without it. So thankfully whatever reason, whether he's afraid he was going to miss the battle waiting on the ark to get there, or if he was just reminded of what happened with Hophni and Phinehas, I don't know, but he at least did not take the ark of the Lord with him at that time. And the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over unto Bethaven. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth food until even, that I may be avenged in mine enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. So he wouldn't let the army eat until they got done with the slaughter. He was so determined to wipe out this army of the Philistines that he would not let them eat, and says, Cursed be the man that eateth any food until even. And all they of the land came to a wood, and there was honey upon the ground. So they go into these woods there as they're journeying after these Philistines, looking for the escapees. And as they're going through, they come into this section of woods, and there's honey dripping off the honeycomb onto the ground there. That would be tempting, enticing as you're walking through these woods and you've not had anything to eat all day long, and then there's that sweet honey just literally dripping out of the trees there onto the ground. Jonathan heard not. Well, let me read verse 26. When the people were come into the wood, behold, the honey dropped, but no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath that Saul had made. But Jonathan heard not what his father charged the people with the oath. He didn't hear Saul make that charge because he was over there whipping the Philistines in their garrison. And so he didn't hear this oath that Saul had made about not eating until they had whipped the Philistines. And so he put forth the end of his rod that was in his hand and dipped it in the honeycomb and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. He received strength from the honey that he had eaten there. Then answered one of the people and said, Thy father straightly charged the people with an oath, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. Oh no, you disobeyed your daddy. You're cursed now. Your daddy's going to kill you because you disobeyed him. All the while Saul disobeying the Lord. But they're worried about his disobedience, Jonathan's disobedience there, which he had no idea of. Saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. Then said Jonathan, My father hath troubled the land See, I pray you how mine eyes have been enlightened because I tasted a little of this honey. How much more if happily the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies, which they found, for had there not been now a much greater slaughter among the Philistines. If we had took time to eat, he said, we'd have killed a bunch more of them because we've run out of energy. And so let me jump back over here where I was at. And he says, verse 31, and they smote the Philistines that day from Michmash to Ajalon, and the people were very faint. And the people flew upon the spoil, and took sheep and oxen and calves, and slew them on the ground, and the people did eat them with the blood. They were so hungry, they didn't even take time to cook everything to its full anyway, and they were eating it with blood and all there, which also is a disobedience of the command of the Lord. Then they told Saul, saying, behold, the people sin against the Lord, and that they eat with the blood. And he said, ye have transgressed, roll a stone unto me this day, a great stone unto me this day. Saul said, just let me die. You all disobeying the Lord like that. And he said, I should just die, you all acting this way. And Saul said, disperse yourselves among the people, and say unto them, bring me hither every man his ox, and every man his sheep, and slay them here, and eat, and sin not against the Lord in eating with the blood. And all the people brought every man his ox with him that night, and slew them there. And Saul built an altar unto the Lord. The same was the first altar that he built unto the Lord. And Saul said, let us go down after the Philistines by night, and spoil them unto the morning light, and let us not leave a man of them. And they said, do whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Then said the priest, let us draw near hither unto God. And Saul asked counsel of God, shall I go down after the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into the hand of Israel? But he answered him not that day. And Saul said, draw ye near hither all the chief of the people, and know and see wherein this sin hath been this day. Saul got no answer from God about whether or not to go against the Philistines and wipe them out completely. And so because he got no answer, he assumed then, well, there's sin among the people. There's sin among the people, and we need to make sure that sin is taken care of. For as the Lord liveth, he says, which saveth Israel, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. But there was not a man among all the people that answered him. Then said he unto all Israel, be ye on one side, and I and Jonathan my son shall be on the other side. And the people said unto Saul, do what seemeth good unto thee. Therefore Saul said unto the Lord God of Israel, give a perfect lot. And Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. And Saul said, cast lots between me and Jonathan my son, and Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, tell me what thou hast done. And Jonathan then told him and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in mine hand, and lo, I must die. And Saul answered, God do so and more also, for thou shalt surely die, Jonathan. He was going to put Jonathan to death for disobeying his command not to eat. Then Saul said to Jonathan, verse 45 rather, and the people said unto Saul, shall Jonathan die, who hath wrought this great salvation in Israel? God forbid. As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground. For he hath wrought with God this day. So the people rescued Jonathan, that he died not. Then Saul went up from following the Philistines, and the Philistine went into their own place. And so the people saved Jonathan here this day from the wrath of Saul. Because they said, there's no way you're going to kill your son who gave us the victory. If it wasn't for Jonathan, we wouldn't have this victory this day. Jonathan is the one who's brought this victory, and you're not going to touch a hair on his head. Verse 47, so Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab and against the children of Ammon and against Edom and against the kings of Zobah and against the Philistines. And whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. And he gathered an host and smote the Amalekites and delivered Israel out of the hands of them that spoiled them. Now the sons of Saul were Jonathan and Ishua and Melchishua, and the names of his two daughters were these: the name of the firstborn Merib, and the name of the younger Michal. And the name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz, and the name of the captain of his host was Abner, the son of Ner, Saul's uncle. And Kish was the father of Saul, and Ner, the father of Abner, was the son of Abiel. And there was sore war against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he took him unto him. So Saul built up his armor. God blessed him with victory during these days, and Saul was given great conquest against these enemies. But we still see, and we'll see it again here in chapter 15, we still see that pride of Saul. We still see that impetuousness of Saul as he would refuse to wait on the Lord and as he would refuse to obey the Lord. He would continue to do his own thing, pick apart the details of what God was giving him and decide, well, I'll do this part of it, but this part's not important. And I'll do this part of it, and this part's not important. And we'll see him pick those apart even in this next chapter here when he goes to fight the Amalekites. God, in all of Saul's the bad things about Saul's nature here that comes out in him as king, God nevertheless blessed during Saul's reign and gave him many victories and delivered the people many times from these enemies of Israel that were gathered round about. And there were many of them that they would fight, the Philistines being probably the greatest of those. In what they would, the sheer number that they would have to fight and the times they would have to fight them. But God would continually give the children of Israel these victories. And even victory after victory, the children of Israel under Saul's leadership would forget so easily, forget so quickly that God was for them, that God was before them, that God was the one giving them the victory, and they would become very fearful. It seems in a very short amount of time. We see all of these victories here that are mentioned in chapter 14. By the time you get over to chapter 17 and David fighting Goliath there, you have the army of Israel there scared to death to go out and fight Goliath. Scared to death to go out there and face that enemy simply because he was a giant. But you got Jonathan here going against a whole garrison of Philistine army by himself, he and his armor bearer. But you have the army still hiding, and there was, even though God would give them victory after victory here, they were not faithful in trusting the Lord's leadership and guidance for them. And no doubt a part of that would be Saul. And the fact that Saul was so wishy-washy in his service to the Lord and his desire to be faithful to the Lord. He very much, it seemed, had an opinion or an understanding that God would just have to bow and do for them because they were Israel. And he was the God of Israel, so God was going to have to honor them. It was kind of his attitude as he would go forward. And God would bless and give many victories, but we see that consistent nature of Saul coming out over and over again, picking and choosing what he wanted to obey and what he wanted to follow. and his own pride getting in the way of his following after the Lord faithfully. We cannot let our pride get ahead of us and direct our path. And we cannot go without the direction of the Lord. We ever need him. As we were talking this morning, we need him every day. Every day. We need his leadership. We need his guidance. We understand very clearly from the scriptures, without him, we can do nothing. We need him every single day. We cannot go off on our own and do our own thing and follow our own path and expect God to bless. There's many times God is merciful, and he blesses in our idiocy and blesses in our ignorance, but he is not bound to at all. We are to strive in ourselves to be faithful to him, to follow his commands, to hold fast to him, and to do as he is commanded, and not what we think is best, but to do what God says is best. That is the way we are to